Hi everyone, I thought I would show you this cheap Wonder Woman doll I got that I decided to repaint. I managed to get her from the Entertainer. She was only £7 and I thought she got a kind of likeness to Gal Gadot and was a good quality doll, but I just felt like I wanted to do a bit of a repaint on her, just to see if I can give her a more sort of natural looking face, and just to see if I could improve her at all. I'm not saying I got her to look like Gal Gadot, but I'm hoping that by the time you see the end of the video, you'll see that I've managed to get her to have a bit more of a realistic face, as it were. So what I'm doing here is going over the eyebrows with some little brush strokes to create the effect of hairs. I decided to paint over the top of the factory paint because it was a good starting point and I felt it was pretty good. I just wanted to refine it a bit more and add a bit more detail. So I started off by adding the odd little shadow here and there and working on the brows. Then I took my craft knife and just used that to shape the brows a little bit because I felt that the brows were too thick, but I wanted the sort of effect of the hairs and everything, but I just need to refine the shape a little bit. So I just used the craft knife just to take the edges off the brows, just to give them a bit more of an arch shape, and just to refine them a bit. And then I just filled in any little hairs that I scratched off. Then I removed the massive eyelashes that were painted on with the factory paint, the sort of, you know, Barbie style, where it's just some big brush strokes for upper lashes. So I removed those, and then the area above the eye, I went over it with a little bit of dark brown first of all, just to darken that little area at the top, give her a little bit more of a smoky eye look. Then I darkened her lips. The lips were quite pink when I first had the doll, and decided I just didn't want that, so I'm going over the lips with a brown and a red, alternating between layers of brown and red till I get the colour of lipstick that I want. And then what I'm doing is going over with a slightly lighter colour and just doing little brush strokes so it gives a bit of texture to the lip. And I've darkened the eyes so far because the eyes were far too bright, and I wanted to give them a really dark brown colour. Then using some pastels, I shaded the cheeks and under the jawline just to show the definition a little bit more of the cheekbones and the jawline. The sculpt on this doll is pretty good actually. I did like the sculpt on this. I'm not normally into repainting like Barbie heads and stuff. I normally prefer the slightly bigger Monster High heads, but after doing this I might repaint more sort of Barbie doll sized dolls. This is not a Barbie, it's just some DC doll. I don't know who made it actually, I haven't looked on the box, but it's not a Barbie. I don't think it's Mattel or anything, this one. I'll have to check on the box. Then I went over the lash line with some black to darken it a little bit further, and obviously went over where the pupil is in the eye. And then I mixed a slightly lighter version of the face colour to go just under the brows on that brow bone area to make that stand out a bit more, and then added just a touch of an off-white just to brighten that up a little bit. I was just using washes of colour with my acrylic paints. I have found that I like pastels for the odd shading and things, but I actually prefer to work in acrylic paint when I'm repainting dolls, so that's what I'm sticking with. You have to excuse me if I keep coughing, I've got a cold at the minute. Then I wanted to add to she's got sort of slight bags under the eyes, so I'm adding just a little bit of shading here and there for that, and shading around where the inner corner of the eye is. And basically after that it's just playing around with more shading, more highlights until I was happy with it. So at this stage I'm going over that upper lid just to make it stand out a bit more, and then what I do is if I put a thin wash of the colour on, and then if I want to blend it in a bit more, what I do is I'll rinse off my brush and I just use the wet paint brush to just smudge the ends of where I've painted, and that tends to blend it in quite well. So that's how I tend to do that. And then I got a slightly lighter brown and added that to the eyes just at the bottom of the iris. So you can see there now there's a definite pupil and also the iris part of the eye. Then I went over the eyeliner and just touched up any little bits that I messed up. On the left eye I kept messing up the one bit, so I had to keep redoing it, but I'll get there in the end. So you can see I messed up that eyeliner then, so I had to go in with my knife and just scratch that off. Then just adding some little flicks of a lighter colour onto the lip. And then I was adding a little bit more shading for where the bags would be under her eyes, and some highlights to the nose and the top of the cheekbones. And it's just very thin washes of acrylic paint that I'm using for this. I have got this Inktense pencil that I'm using on the lips and everything. I have found out later on though you've got to be careful, because when you put the varnish on, it tends to run a little bit and smudge a little bit, so not best to use Inktense pencils, but never mind. I managed to get around it anyway. I'm just refining the shape of her hairline, and then adding a bit more highlights just using my pencil. I think that one was actually a charcoal pencil instead of a watercolour pencil, but never mind. And then I use pastels a lot for shading and highlights. I find they blend in quite easy, and I just find it adds a little bit to the paintwork. It adds slightly more subtle shading and highlights that you can't necessarily get with the acrylic paint. And then I keep going over that hairline a few times because I wasn't happy with it. Even though up close it's little fine brush strokes that look like hairs, at a distance it looks like a little block of colour, but never mind. Then I'm just going over the eyeliner with black just to darken it, touching up any bits that I've got pastel on the pupil of the eye, because I found that once I've done the pastel bit I kind of faded some of the bits of the eye, so I had to go over them again. So yeah, just kept going over it and just altering bits. Here I'm using a really dark brown to go over that hairline, and add a little bit around the ears. I decided to have the hair down in the end, so that's why I didn't worry about doing the back of the hair. And I just used some more paint just very thinly to shade under the jawbone, and I added a little beauty mark on her cheek. And if you look, if you mess up and you get a smudge of paint where you don't want it, just use a wet paintbrush and a cotton bud and you can get those off quite easily. Then I added the highlights to her lips and to her eyes, and then used some gloss varnish just on the lips and just on the colour part of the eye. And that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.